Welcome to the next episode of See, Here's the Deal. I'm Marc Kulik. My normal co-host, Mario Gibson, is taking a back seat for this one. And we have a special guest on the show today, Ben Didier.
Hello.
So, we're going to give a quick intro into how you and I know each other.
Okay.
And then we'll just go from there.
Okay.
So, Ben was my former boss.
True.
And then, as we'll get into multiple times, then had a chance to be my partner in Vesta.
Also true.
Turned it down, and a couple years later, joined us as our COO. So today's episode, we're going to cover a hell of a good story of me and Ben.
True.
All right, so Ben, let's start off. Let's start off talking about our interview.
Yeah.
When I came to work for you.
I remember. So I usually always try to leave my calls for the trip. I was out in Austin at the time. I was living in Houston, so it's like an hour and a half long drive, and started a call with Marc when I got in the road, and still was talking to him when I pulled in the driveway at home. And by then we'd already agreed on a Friday afternoon that he would start on Monday, I believe.
Yeah. So well, that was a little. I think it was Thursday night we had that call.
Okay.
But the funny part from my angle, like knowing you like I do now, I mean, I got to set the stage for everybody here. So, for people that don't know the story, so I was working in Kansas. I never applied to work for Ben, but I had become close with a local commercial real estate broker in Lawrence. He was close with a guy who worked at the company that Ben worked for, and I had told my friend that I was interested in making a switch. So I get this unsolicited call on Thursday, one day before my 2-week notice is up at my company, on my office line, and it's Ben wanting to set up an interview. We set up an interview for like 4 or 5 o'clock, and Ben just no call, no showed. I got nothing, and so I was like, yeah, I wasn't gonna move to Austin anyway. It's fine. Then Ben called me at like whatever your ride home was.
Yeah, it's like 7 o'clock.
Yeah, like 7 o'clock.
I finished my day.
By Thursday night, you had told me that you wanted to hire me, but that I had an interview with the ownership group.
All right, Nathan.
Yep. I had an interview with Nathan on Friday. And then I accepted the job with Nathan on Friday and moved out on Monday.
Yep.
That was the
Got him.
Got him. So like take us through like what was it like for you getting to that point in your life?
You mean professionally or?
Yeah, professionally. I mean, you had achieved a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
Look, we were both young and successful, right? But you had achieved by that point more than I had.
Yes, I mean, I graduated, actually goes all the way back to college, started out in student housing, actually graduated early from high school, so I was ahead of my friends. Graduated college, all the job opportunities were not in the little college town I was at.
Well, also, you and I graduated, you and I finished college at really bad times.
Yeah.
I mean, 2010
is not
yeah,
the best,
not a great time for the job
the world was
market.
not on fire. Well, I mean, depending on
The world was on fire.
Depends on what you mean, right? The economy wasn't on fire. And so I was like, screw this. I'm going to find the first job I can locally, stay party with my friends. Ended up as a leasing manager. They found out I was capable of more pretty quick, kept giving me more. And then they said, hey, you want to go out to Mississippi, run your own site? I thought, well, it's a better opportunity than I expected. Getting out, I'll probably take it. Did well there, gave me another property, did well there, gave me a development, promoted me to corporate, moved to Houston.
By the way, though, Ben just skipped a lot, and I think, but one of the things that I think, look, there are people that always ask me for advice, right? Like my Facebook, I'll get a couple hits every once in, people I don't know, people I do know. Hey, I want to better my career. Like, what advice do you have for me? But I think some of the most valuable advice I've ever gotten in my career comes from your story. So you take a job, you started out where?
In Auburn, Alabama as a leasing manager.
All right. Where was your first job as a property manager?
Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Where was your next job?
Austin, Texas.
Next job?
Fort Collins, Colorado.
Next job?
Houston, Texas.
So one of the things that like I learned from you is if you want to be truly successful, you got to move.
Gotta go where the opportunity is.
You got to go where the opportunity is. And I know that you have mentored so many people over your career, and that is advice that you have continued to give people.
Yep. It's one of my favorite lines that seems to resonate with people is I tell them, you're open to what opportunities within your state just to make it easy and make the math easy. And they say, yeah, okay, so there's 50 states, United States. You're open to anything in your state because you want to stay close to home. Yeah. Okay. Well, that'd be like closing the door on 98% of opportunities available to you. And I need to ask you if you think you can maximize your career potential and your success by refusing to open the door on 98% of the opportunities that exist to you.
I mean, it made so much sense to me when you talked to me about that. And I think it's like the best advice, right? Like, if there's an opportunity, don't.
That's how the world works today. It's
right.
not, you don't stay in the same town anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you have to be ready to take something on that maybe you didn't expect.
Yep.
Okay, so now you're at corporate. Now you're at corporate.
Yep, so now I'm in the corporate office, and that's, obviously you expand your portfolio, and that's when I realized very quickly that I can't handle my workload anymore. At the site level, you can manhandle a property by yourself. Your staff can be subpar, you can get it done. At the regional level, and that's where I think a lot of people make their failure at that position change, is that they can't cultivate, train the team, develop the team they need so that they can do their job effectively. And you can't, the portfolio is too big. So that's when I realized quickly that the keys to success are building and developing your team. Along the way, I found that if you invest in people from a mentorship perspective, they'll tend to follow you and invest back in you and in your success. And so I became well known as somebody that people like to work for. I became well known as somebody who's very able to relocate people across the country. I moved people from Florida to Washington to South Carolina.
By the way, y'all, no one has lived until they've gotten a Ben full court press of why you should take a job in another city, and he'll break it down for you by the economics. He'll be like, all right, taxes are this in your city, rent is this, I'm offering you this. I mean, it's impressive.
Overwhelming with facts.
Yeah. Yep. We've seen it firsthand at Vesta because, there was somebody we were recruiting that had a job offer in Phoenix. And the job offer in Phoenix was like 10 grand more than the job offer from us. And Ben just went at her with like, okay, but this is your cost of living in Phoenix. This is your cost of living here. This is the value of a free apartment with us. Like, and by the way, at the end of the picture show, we're about $25,000 a year better than they are.
Yep.
It's great. It's a work of art.
They got to be able to put money into their IRA now, and if you can't maximize that, that's what they lose at the end of that.
Oh, well, great. So you've even added to
right,
it.
Right, $5 grand in your 20s goes a lot longer than $5 grand in your 40s. It's called compound interest.
So,
and people appreciate that education.
Sometimes.
A lot of them.
Sometimes.
You're right. Sometimes. For a lot of people, they're never told those things.
Yeah, no, for sure.
They don't
never think about it.
They never think about it.
No, for sure. That's certainly true. I don't think people think about. I oftentimes don't think people realize when we give them free rent at an apartment. I don't think they realize what that means.
Yep. So I just got promoted, trying for a first kid. Kids really make you think way further in the future. And I think, I got a really good thing going here. I had the same fear a lot of people have when they go to start a business too, is I'm not ready. Self-doubt, things like that. And at the end of the day, I just didn't have the gall to follow you. I just thought that the risk was too great, given the current opportunity I had and the responsibility I had on the way.
Yeah. You also had the opportunity to move to Utah at the time.
Right. I just got approved to work from home, so I was moving close to my folks, and I also love Utah, and so it's first chance I got to pick where I wanted to live and enjoy it.
Right. Yeah. You're heading there. When was the first time that you and I don't even know if I know the answer to this. We're really close. You're one of my best friends in this world. When was the first time that you realized you regretted that decision? Like, when was the first time you were like, maybe I should have gone
Probably
to
when
Vesta?
you closed the marquee.
That early?
Yeah. I was like, the son of a bitch did it.
All right. But it took a while for you to come along.
Yeah, well, I was still focused on. I didn't think that I'd squandered. I still felt the opportunity I had was good and it was working out for me. And they switched me to the biggest client, and they had me training with the board of directors and to take on a president role. And I thought, my career here is secure. This is where I want to be. And yeah, so I mean, but obviously as I watched your success, I regretted it more and more.
I mean, I guess my trip to Houston when my dad and I went to the opera together was because I think we had closed on not only Marquis at that point, but we'd also closed on Thrive.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting at the hotel bar talking to you, and you were like you were asking me about like financing questions, like underwriting questions, and you were like, God, like a year ago I was giving you advice.
Right. Yeah. No, it was. I was like, how did you learn all this so quick?
So you had some desire to start your own shop.
Yep.
Obviously, you and I spent a lot of time back then trying to figure out if the right move for you was to come join us at some point, start your own firm. What was the most exciting thing about the idea of starting your own firm for you?
I just control, I think, and I mean, obviously there's the financial opportunity of it.
Sure. You and I are both two people that are highly motivated by money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually recently told somebody that I look at like career and work as a game.
Yeah.
And the score is how much money you can make.
Look,
and I'm very competitive.
Look, we're in a business, right, where like we're in a weird spot in that business, and I've been writing blog posts about this, right? But like for our investors, for us, that's it, right? There's one way, I think from an investor perspective, like, and your dad's invested, your parents have invested with us, my parents have invested with us. Like from an investment perspective, a deal's good that ends well. Right. A deal's good that makes money.
Right.
And I think that in our business lives, you and I both agree, like if you make money, like that makes all the stress, all the hassles,
what are we doing
everything worth it. There's that other side of our business though, which is our residents. I
and our staff.
On our first I think it was the first podcast. I had an upset resident send me a message on Facebook. It said, "Does making your money when you buy mean not taking care of my work orders?"
Right.
And I'm first of all, I'm like, well, I don't know who this person. I said, I'm so sorry. Like, please tell me more about your situation. And I realized in that moment though that like, it's not when we say we're motivated by money, that doesn't mean that we're motivated to shortchange our residents.
No,
actually on the contrary.
We don't make money that way.
We only make money if our residents are happy, right, successful in their own right. And I think that that's something that gets lost in when we tell people that we're motivated. And I'm on this because prior to starting Vesta, I thought everybody was motivated by money.
Yeah.
I just thought that was like a prime motivation, like make money, take care of your family. Like I thought that's people's motivation. Yeah. And there are some people that say, there are some people that say my motivation is to travel, see the world. Okay, you're going to do that without money?
Right.
How? How? Yeah, exactly. Plane tickets are only getting worse. And so for me, like, I thought that was just the genuine motivation of all human beings. And when I started the company, I made it a goal of mine to, I wanted to treat people like I want to be treated. So, hey, you joined me early on, you're going to make money. And what I realized early on was that didn't work for some people.
Right.
Like that is not the goal. For some people, it's, it's work-life balance. Yep. It's working less hours. I don't care if I make money as long as I work less hours.
Right.
And I just thought that was super interesting because It's like, so when we say we're motivated by money, it's not and I hope that if there's a resident out there watching, I'm going to make this clear as possible with both Ben and I on the show, right? Like, when we say we're motivated by money, we're motivated to have every property of ours be successful,
right,
to the nth degree,
right.
Which means if we could get every resident thrilled and renewing at our properties, that would be our ultimate goal. Anyways, a little digression, but I thought it's an important thing to realize is what that actually means.
Right. Well, I mean, the number one lead source that converts to leases is word of mouth.
By the way, he's in operations.
It's referrals, right? And upset residents are 9 times more likely to speak out than a happy resident is.
Mm-hmm.
And we only make money if we're highly occupied, highly collected,
Mm-hmm.
and pushing rate. And I can't push rate when we're 85% or 90%. I got to push rate when we're full. And so I can't be successful with the property unless I am also catering to our residents, right?
You know, but that's
Providing
actually
them a value that they find commiserate. You know, no one wants to pay for something they feel like they're not getting what the value.
So it's actually interesting. I thought we would talk about this a little later in the show, but it's great that our minds are in the same place. You know, one of the things that I value about Vesta, about what we've been able to do, and actually about buying multifamily in Oklahoma, is when we talk about raising rents, we're not talking about moves that make rents unaffordable for people.
Right. No.
We're on a pro forma basis. We're talking about, hey, we're buying a deal at 75, and I tell this to investors all the time. If we're buying a deal at 75 cents a square, that current rents are 75 cents a square foot, and there's usually loss to lease on top of that, so maybe net effective is in the low 70s, high 60s, you know? And our performance says we're getting to 90 cents a square foot. We're still highly affordable.
Right.
We're not making anybody.
Well, you were usually buying distressed assets, or at least, you know, that have been mismanaged. And so the residents aren't happy. The rate's not where it should be, but it's because they're providing poor product.
Yeah. Which is a good point. I mean, I think like a lot of times we will have residents who are angry might be angry from before we took over the property, might be angry about things that we're currently working on. And it's just that, you know, this stuff, I always tell investors that there's a difference between the model and on paper and getting into the real nitty gritty of a property.
Yep.
You know, you can say on a model, it's going to take me 3 years to get through a renovation. And that's really, I mean, it takes years to get through a renovation. And you and I have both seen multifamily owners and operators in Austin, for instance, that never budgeted for a 3-year renovation process. They said, we're going to do everything in 6 months. Right?
Yeah.
What happens?
It's chaotic and it's not ineffective.
It's chaotic and it's ineffective. 3 years is what you need to get through. 3-4 years is what you need to get through a real renovation. But what does that feel like when you're a tenant who we're with a unhappy before we even got there,
right?
And you're waiting a year, 2 years for like everything to come together and change. It's tough. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what makes our industry tough.
It is.
But we jumped the gun here because we still have to introduce what you do for Vesta. Like I make the joke that you're in operations, right? We always make that joke, like Ben's in operations. But we still need to get to the point that you are the head of a COO.
Yep.
Everything in operations is under your purview.
Yes.
So I think we'll get there. So, but back to like, you and I never found a way to get your business, Golden Spike Capital, off the ground.
Nope.
It's a great name.
Thank you.
I have
named after the Golden Spike driven at Promontory Point, just north of where I lived in Utah.
By the way, I implicitly understood the reference. Always. But Golden Spike is now kind of gone.
Yeah.
So this is what 2021.
Yep, 2021. When I joined, right, I had aspirations eventually. My own
I guess that was right because when we first talked about you coming on board, it was in kind of a consulting capacity, and it would give you some fresh income while you transition to starting Golden Spike.
Yep, I would help you operationally, and you'd help me try to lift that up. And at some point, realize we're better off just doing it this way.
How quickly? I don't know if you remember exactly, but how quickly do you think you changed course? Because it must have been pretty quick.
I think we had that conversation. I started the last week of May, and I think I gained as I said, at the point it was EVP, but I gained the head of operations on July 28th. So I would say sometime in early July, I started having this conversation. So month in.
So you started in May of 2021. We had just closed on Barcelona, or we're just about to close on Barcelona?
We just closed. I wasn't here for the Barcelona close. I was here for the OKC4.
For the OKC4 close. Man, so you started right at the start of the bridge debt.
Yeah, we were 4,600 units, and 18 months later, I think we were close to 10,000.
That's crazy. Wow. And what was the biggest surprise to you?
What was the biggest surprise? That's a good question. I think the biggest surprise was just the culture here and the relationship and how different the dynamic was from what I was used to. Because I came from, a big machine. And it wasn't a big machine when I started with them, but it was a big machine by the time I left. And I got to see that transition. And so actually I kind of had a pathway. And so when I jumped in the role, I kind of had a pathway, and you actually stopped me at one point. And you're like, hey, I want you to bring in the structural organization to take it to the next level. I don't want you to bring in that corporate culture that everybody's so used to. It's really important we maintain this. And I'm all for that too. And it's just I was following what I had seen.
Yeah.
And so I think that might have been the most surprising was how much you wanted to hold on that. And the thing is, I did too. I just didn't know if we could accomplish both at the same time.
It was a pipe dream, right? Like, I thought my career would go from, I always liked acquisitions and dispos. I always liked that part of the business. I always dreamed that my career would go from on-site management to joining some firm's acquisitions department, right? But I had this dream that if I ever owned my own company, we'd have like Nerf gun fights on Friday, right? Like I initially, even when I started Vesta, the dream of Nerf gun Friday was dead. But when I started the company, I still had aspirations that maybe we'd be like Google and, no work hours. As long as you get your work done, doesn't matter if you're working, if you're a night owl, work at night. And I had those aspirations. So I had to come back down to earth a little bit pretty early on before you joined and just understand that like all of those ideas are fun and it's a world that I would want to live in, but it's just not a world that we're ready to live in,
right.
Particularly in this industry.
Yeah, this industry's so hands-on.
Right, this industry's so hands-on. This industry's so, it's like, this is like, I feel like property management is like an old school, like you have to work a full day. There's no such thing as you're lucky to get a lunch break.
There's no cruise control.
Yeah, there is zero cruise control.
And operations is demanding. It's why it pays well.
That's so true. I mean, and by the way, I mean, I think that as a launching, you and I have both been there. Once you realize how much money firms pay,
right?
Even property managers now, but back when you and I were coming up, it was more regionals were the first time where you made that level of money. You start to think like, oh, this is a great industry to be in.
Right.
Like,
opportunities there,
but it's the stress. But it's the stress. I mean, you put up with the stress. You put up with the
hours.
The hours. I mean, look, even as a property manager, you're so responsible for what goes on around you. When you get up to C-suite, I mean, everything's your problem. I know you and I feel the same way here, but I've had people over the years say, well, I didn't want to bring this issue to you because I feel like it's beneath you. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
There's no issue beneath me.
Right. No, absolutely.
So your earliest surprise is kind of that culture mentality.
Yep.
What was your favorite or most memorable close you've been? I asked Miranda the same question. What was your favorite or most memorable close you've been a part of?
I think it's Putnam Green.
Why?
Because we have this picture. It's on our website. It's one of my favorite pictures. But it had a Kelsey, Corey, and Parth in it, right? And I had recruited Corey from North Carolina. I had recruited Kelsey from Arkansas. And I recruited Parth from Spokane, Washington. These guys had worked with me for 3 to 5 years each. They've all moved more than one time for me. And here they are jumping ship from other companies to come help me on this crazy ride. And, I just felt, that was just a memorable close for me. I remember taking that picture thinking, you brought your people with you. I was fortunate that they had enough faith in me to follow me. And I was fortunate to have them. And I liked that close. And I just remember we're building the team here.
I like that. That's cool. That's really cool. I didn't realize that. So, but it is. I mean, one of the first things you did was you brought so many people over. This is going to be a personal topic, but I think it's kind of a great segue from what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fact that didn't work out.
Yeah.
So Ben, how many people did you bring on
that haven't worked out?
No. Just that first.
In general.
That first 6 months.
First 6 months. Let's see.
What was it, 9?
Yeah, I think about 9.
It was like 9 people.
Yep. All from out
And
of state.
today, only one of them is still with us.
One. Yeah.
I know we talked about this offline 2 days ago.
Yeah.
But like, what does that mean to you?
Well, I feel like I failed them in some ways. Because, I take responsibility.
That's not what we talked about 2 days ago. But go on. But
Which
no,
one-
go on.
I take personal responsibility if people are going to follow me from out of state. And what I did was a mistake, which was it was based on a successful strategy I deployed before, which is bring on overlooked, hungry, ambitious. I focused on hiring attitude, people that had a strong work ethic. I can teach the rest, right? And I would. I'd have 2 or 3 of those on my team every year as a regional, and they'd be rock stars by the end of the year. And I would hand mentor them and put so much effort into their development. The problem I made here was a misjudgment of my time allocation. I brought in all people, no experience, and then didn't have the time to put any development into them, let alone each one of them.
Yeah.
And so, because I didn't have any experience, especially out in OKC, they had no one to lean on.
Yeah.
And so it didn't work, right? And that was a misjudgment on myself, and I take responsibility for it.
What we talked about a couple days ago in a totally different avenue, but in getting the same point, was that we're not they were all 9 people came from the same company.
That dynamic. Yes.
Yeah, they were all
Yes.
they were all used to heavily institutional.
Correct.
And that's not us.
No.
And so for people that want an institutional quality like work life, right? We're probably not the right fit.
We're not. And to your point, it's funny to see that because it's definitely a matter of perspective. Because some people come in and it really bothers them. And some people come in and they're just overjoyed that they finally found another place that's like what they were trying to get back to someplace else.
Yeah.
And,
which we've had that experience very recently with one
Right.
particular company.
Right.
When you say get back to, we've had 5 or 6 new employees that came from one company that's no longer around Tulsa.
Right.
And they're just trying to recreate how they felt at work when they were in their happiest times.
Yep. And so they actually yearn for the dynamic we have here, whereas some people couldn't.
What do you think that dynamic is? I think I know my answer, but what do you think that dynamic is?
Well, I think that it's more relationship driven.
Yeah. I mean, how many companies do you get daily correspondences, emails, whatever,
Right.
from the CEO and the COO?
Right.
I mean, I think I can count on one hand the number of times I ever got a direct message from anyone in the C-suite of any of the companies I worked for before Vesta.
Right.
And for our employees, that's something they have to deal with day in, day out. And they may look, one of the things is that if they may look bad, they may say something that is wrong. And, there are some people that I think you and I have realized like problems in how they manage our assets based on daily reports.
Absolutely.
So I think that adds, like, for some people, I think that that's a really exciting element. Like, oh my God, I trust I want to work closely with Marc and Ben.
Right.
I want to be in a company where I can work closely with everyone in the executive level.
Right.
I want to work in a company where, my voice is heard.
Right. Well, you mentioned, that we sometimes recognize people in problems. We also recognize people who have potential.
Oh my God,
and
yeah.
provide them with opportunities.
The amount of times that somebody like an assistant manager who we don't know that well
Right.
steps up, answers a question on a daily report,
Here you go.
and you're like, whoa, you get it.
Yeah.
Like, you get it.
And it goes back to it's a matter of perspective. Some
Yeah.
people look at that and think, I don't want the
Yeah.
meddling, I don't want the oversight, I don't want that pressure.
Yeah.
And then you have other people who look at it and say, man, what an opportunity.
Some people look at us and they think we're the biggest jerks in the world. And the thing is that we are responsible for huge amounts of money, for huge amounts of responsibility, both to our investors. We're responsible to our residents. I mean, we have our hearts on our sleeves constantly.
Yep.
We have our money at stake constantly. We have our reputation at stake constantly. And so for me, it's eye-opening when you have somebody on the site level who says, I'm going to stand up and take responsibility, good or bad, for what's happening on this site. And I've got your back. You don't have to worry. The only thing I ask is that you have mine too. And for those employees, I mean, yeah, you're right. They shine real bright, real fast.
Yep.
And then there are the others that take the, like, you guys are jerks. You guys are meddling, as you said. You're too intrusive. Like, I've never been with a company where people care this much. And it's like, yeah, well, I mean, that is what it's like working for us.
Yep. Well, I was interviewing a regional who's now on our team, and I ask this question every interview, and people really botch it. They don't know how to answer it. But I always say, what do you think the biggest difference between third party and owner operators? Mm-hmm. And she nailed it. She's like, I think owner operator is much harder. I said, well, why do you say that? She's like, in third party, you kind of got an out. She's like, right, you're mm-hmm. You're only dealing with an asset manager who's just a hired gun. So their level of care, it's not their money, it's not their investors' money. They're just doing a job and getting to the end of the day too. And she's like, and at the end of the day, they're still approving everything. So yeah, you can give them suggestions and they're mm-hmm. going to say yay or nay. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, you say, well, you guys didn't give me the resources, or at the end of the day, it does work. And they say, well, I approved it, and they get the credit one way or the other. Whereas an owner operator, no, it's not the way it works. You're either driving results or you're not. There's no one else to blame it on. It's not the asset manager holding you back, and it's not the asset manager that's not engaged. It's you're being held accountable for the decisions you make. You get to make your own plan. You get to run with it. It's going to be successful or not. But it's not, hey, asset manager, what do you think about these three options? The asset manager picks, and then maybe it flops, maybe it doesn't. But either way, well, the asset manager picked this option. It's the asset manager's fault.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not my fault. It's the asset manager's fault. And that's what I feel like people do to their investors too. And that's why, that's the benefit of third party. It's not that I made a bad investment decision with your money. It's we hired the wrong manager. It's the manager's fault. When I switch managers, right. Everything gonna be okay. We're flying without those nets.
Yep.
Right. And so, yeah, we're a little bit more intense and we care a little bit more.
Yeah. There was one of our partners, I won't say which one, but one of our investment partners, when we were dealing with all the evictions from last year, all the non-payers after, kind of put in the post-COVID world, it exposed a lot of flaws in property management, not just for us as a whole. And I think a lot of the distress you see, sure, a lot of people think that a lot of people, if you look on LinkedIn, the distress is solely based on interest rates. Yeah. It's over-levered loans and it's high interest loans. And they don't understand that a lot of the distress in multifamily is actually from non-paying tenants.
Right.
That's where you really started to hurt. So I remember last year talking to these guys, and I was like, look, the eviction crisis was a real thing. We got through it. But now I've realized that the property manager at this particular site isn't cutting it. And that's the problem. And they said to me, well, you are our property manager, so you mean you're not cutting it? And I was on the phone. They couldn't see my face. I made one of those faces that you're like, and I said, well, yes, Vesta is the company that is in charge of property management. But it's unbelievable to assume that it's not real to assume that we will never have a bad hire, that we'll never have a bad property manager, that we'll never make, not a bad property manager, even wrong for the site, wrong for our company, wrong for our business, maybe a great person, maybe a great human being, but just wrong for that time, for that role, whatever it may be. And so I explained to them, I said, look, having a property management company, either third party or owner operator, right? I said, you don't need a good company, a good team doing your property management when cap rates are compressing, right? If cap rates are compressing, we're all making money, and that's where all these third party firms pop up, because it's like, does property management really matter? No. If you're buying at a 6 and selling at a 4, I've got news for you. You're making money. Making a lot of it, But how do you make money when you're buying at a 6 and selling at a 6.5? And that lies solely in property management. 100%. And that's when you need a good property manager. And what a good property management company does is they are involved with their teams on a day-to-day basis. They can tell you which of their property managers are performing well, which are right for the roles they're in, which are not right for the roles they're in, but could be repositioned to another property, to another role that will be more successful. And the key is to stay on top of that. And if you're not staying on top of that, you're not a good property manager. And I said that to them, right? And did it hit home? I hope so. I think so. I'm not 100% sure, because I think that in some instances, you're only as good as your results in that moment. And I think that same statement with those same guys would go a hell of a lot farther today, because obviously things are very different today than they were a year ago. But it's definitely, I think that's definitely like a key concept is the vital importance of property management.
Absolutely. For me, I feel like there's so many areas we can still improve at. I feel like I am proud of stuff that we've implemented and built, and the second round of talent acquisition post first dynamic we expressed earlier, I think has been much more successful.
Oh my God. I mean, I have investors that have come to particularly Oklahoma City, and they just cannot stop raving about the people we brought in. I mean, I think we have, one of the greatest successes of the last 12 months for us.
Yep. And so that's something I'm happy with, and I'm happy to see the benefit and the impact we've already seen, but I know it's coming more. But I just think systemically there's other things we can do, and I want to build out our data analytics and build out our training department and just continue to build the resources and tools necessary so that our team can just be more efficient, more effective. We can see problems earlier, have the data to be able to have database decisions to fix them faster, and just continue to make this a more well-oiled machine.
I think one of the reasons that you and I work so well together is you are the hard edge of business focus. You're data,
nuts and bolts.
Data, nuts and bolts. Yeah. Whereas I'm much more, the soft edge, like emotions, feelings.
True.
Conceptual
feelings. I'm just kidding.
Feelings. What are those? Ben's infamous in Vesta for a quote: "Nobody cares. Work harder." And Ben, I gotta tell you, you exemplify work harder all the time. We are so lucky to have you as a friend, as a colleague, as a peer. I know that I asked you about how you felt when I offered you the position the first time, but I want you to know that I was pretty crestfallen when you didn't take it first time. And we're gonna close with this, but my memory of you coming to work, of the first time we talked about you joining Vesta, was that I had asked you for permission to interview somebody beneath you. And your response was, "Well, why aren't you wanting to interview me?" And I said, if that's a conversation we're having, but we're having that conversation,
Yep.
And so I just want you to know that having you be a part of this is both better late than never, and one of the great blessings of my life.
I really appreciate that, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm happy to be here.
Let's do it. Guys, this was another episode of See Here's the Deal. Hopefully next time we'll be back to me and Mario shooting it out, and look forward to seeing you next month.